Alright, what's up everyone? Welcome back to Star Wars Mark of Balance. My name is Mark, and we are going to be doing some tier list content today. My first time doing a tier list. I've earned some lazy content, to be completely honest, and since we're in a lull of Star Wars content at the moment, I thought it would be fun to just look back at all of the Star Wars TV shows and put them in a tier list. I do respect the tier list medium of ranking because it does make you question a lot of the decisions you make while you're doing it, because sometimes you'll put two shows next to each other in the same tier and you look at them a little bit differently. You're like, wait a minute, do I actually think those shows are on the same level? So I am excited to get into this. I have included all of the live action and animated shows that we have gotten, all of the canon ones at least. I did, however, include the Clone Wars from 2003 by Gendy. It holds a special place in my heart, and I know it holds a special place in a lot of people's hearts, so I will be including that in the tier list. I want to go through all the tiers that I did, because I did put some thought into what the tiers are going to be. If you're not familiar with tier list rankings, it goes S is the top, and then we have A, B, C, D, E, F, ranking, grading in the way that you do in school. So I have S through F, and then I also have a category of shows I haven't seen, because there is a Star Wars show I have not seen that is considered canon. So I'm going to go through these so you guys understand where I'm coming from on the tier list ranking list. So we have Kanan at the bottom. Pretty self-explanatory. I haven't seen the show, so Kanan is the tier there. Next we have the F tier. This is Kathleen Kennedy. Another pretty self-explanatory tier list here. And then in the D ranking, we don't have E's in school, so we're going right to D. We have, wait a minute, how did this happen? We're smarter than this. So this tier is really for the shows that should have been better. There was just a home run to be had, and the show just went a completely terrible direction and just didn't live up to what it should have. Or, it's just a bad show. Then we have Bendu at the C tier, so mid. If you haven't seen Rebels, the Bendu is the one in the middle, so I thought it would be nice and appropriate to have him be the mid tier of C. Then we have at the B tier, this is where the fun begins. This is shows that are getting good, are good most of the time, but do have some lackluster pieces of them, and just really living in that B tier, above mid, but not amazing. Then we have for our A tier, we have luminous beings. We're all luminous beings. Yoda really being philosophical, and the beauty of this content is why it would be A tier. And these shows could be considered S tier by some people, and I would totally respect if they're S tier, but for me, they don't reach that peak, but they are really great in their own right. So that's luminous beings at the A tier. And then we have, for the S tier, Peak Wars. Self-explanatory. Peak of Star Wars, peak fiction in the Star Wars galaxy. You know what I'm talking about there. So those are all the tiers. I have all the shows listed at the bottom. If you are watching this, so you can see the posters that I have, I tried to alternate between animated and live action shows, so I'm not doing all the live actions first and all the animated first. And when I did that, it's actually really cool that we do have almost an equal amount of live action and animated shows. So respect to Star Wars for kind of striking that balance, even though I still think there is the stigma of having to have a lot of things in live action. Those are the actual important things, when, some of the best Star Wars is in animation. So I've been talking a lot. I did not randomize this list. I just uploaded the posters and they all popped up. So we're just going to jump in, and we're going to start with Star Wars Rebels, which has been in the conversation because of Ahsoka. And for me, Rebels is going to be a luminous being. It's going to be A tier. Rebels has a fantastic story. It has a lot of influence on what we're seeing in the Star Wars galaxy now. It introduces some amazing characters. We have Kanan, one of the best Jedi characters we have in all of Star Wars. He has an amazing journey. We have Ezra, pretty annoying most of the time, but I think he actually does start to come around in season 3 and 4, and I think his payoff is really great in the end. And Amon Esfandi, he's doing a good job with him now. Sabine, probably my favorite character outside of Kanan from Rebels. She has this great redemption arc and becomes the savior of Mandalore after being one of the people that essentially destroyed Mandalore and her people. So amazing, amazing stuff with her and the Darksaber. Then Hera is this amazing mother figure that, we haven't seen a lot of mother figures in Star Wars, and I think she was the first one to be that shining example. And we get some depth with her. We have some love story with her and Kanan. It's really great. And then Zeb, we have the last survivor of a species, and him having these great moments with Callus, and then him finding a new homeworld for his people. Really great stuff. Captain Rex shows up in it. We have the Ahsoka Vader stuff. It's all a lot of peak in Star Wars, but I think the package as a whole, watching it week to week, I'll be the first one to admit, watching Rebels week to week was a slog at some points on Disney XD. So I do have to keep it from peak just a little bit. But I mean, you have Maul in this with him and Ezra. We have the Ahsoka and Vader stuff, which is some of the best Star Wars we've ever seen. We have Obi-Wan show up against Maul, another amazing piece of Star Wars content. And then we have the World Between Worlds with the Mortis gods coming back. And this time travel, it's not time travel. It's not time travel. But we have this connection of the Force between all people with the World Between Worlds. So enough on Rebels. I'm going A tier there. Total respect if you go peak with that, but I'm going A tier. Oh boy. Okay, we have Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan, I would say with time, has moved from Bendu, mid. I think it's, wait a minute, how did this happen? We're smarter than this. It's a D tier for me. And, you know, I could sit here and say it's mid because, ooh, I loved Ewan being back in the performance. Oh, Darth Vader was really cool. But, I mean, I'm really picking at moments in a 6-episode series. If I have to pick little moments to say, oh, it's great because of this one moment, I don't think that deserves to be mid. I think that is a bad package that has some good moments in it. And I think that best describes Obi-Wan. I think there are some good ideas. We have Reva, which from a 1,000-foot view, cool concept, but really bad execution. I think she had so much more potential. The last 2 episodes with her are so messy. She survives the stab wound, and then she goes to kill Luke, and then she's somehow redeemed by not killing an innocent child. I don't know. Just really bad writing. I think some of the direction is really bad. We have the moments with Darth Vader and Obi-Wan, you know, with the helmet slash. I mean, that's really amazing. Hayden Christensen was great in the role, but I think some of the dialogue in that fight was just reused from Revenge of the Sith. There wasn't too much new context, and you know, at the end of the day, I just think Obi-Wan is very forgetful outside of all the criticisms I have. I only think of Obi-Wan when I think of, oh, that should have been so much better. So I'm going, you know, D tier here, which I think might be low for a lot of people, but I think this is where it deserves to be, in D tier. So moving on, we have Tales of the Jedi. Another tough one for me because there are some really great moments in Tales of the Jedi, but I think I'm putting it in the Bendu tier. I'm going mid for Tales of the Jedi. I mean, the highs with Count Dooku's story, with him and Qui-Gon investigating the Senator on the one planet, and then, of course, his fight between him and Yaddle and his full-on turn to the dark side. That's one of my favorite episodes in Star Wars animation. So, I mean, there are really high highs in Tales of the Jedi, but I think for me, the Ahsoka episodes were very underwhelming. I think the concept of the first one, of her being a child and being nursed by her mother and getting captured and seeing that connection to the Force, I think the music, the direction of that episode was great, but I do think I wanted more emotion from it. I just didn't feel as connected as I felt I should have. Then the training episode with Ahsoka, cool to see. I don't know how necessary it was. We kind of knew Anakin was tough on Ahsoka, but this just kind of reinforced it. And then we have the last episode, which I think was the biggest disappointment, because Ahsoka goes to this remote world, tries to hide, and then she eventually gets found out, and the Imperials come, and they burn the village, and she fights the Inquisitor. That's a cool fight, but it's like 5 seconds of the episode. I think the dialogue and her connection with the people there is very shallow. I don't think it's that great. I think the book, the Ahsoka novel, does a much better job of making her integrate into that world and that society, and when the Empire does come, we feel that impact, and we feel like she is fighting for something. But I think the way it's done in Tales of the Jedi just doesn't live up to what it should have been. So I'm going mid here, even though it sounds like I'm really critical of it. I think, you know, it does live in that mid territory where there's really good, really not great, and then just like kind of this middle stuff. So Count Dooku was the highlight for me, surprisingly, over Ahsoka in Tears of the Jedi, Tales of the Jedi, sorry, Tears of the Kingdom by Zelda just got nominated for Game of the Year. Right, next one, Book of Boba Fett. I mean, let's be honest with ourselves, this is Kathleen Kennedy. This is an F-tier show. Boba Fett should not have been the lead in a TV show. That's never been his role. It never was supposed to be his role, and even though I think there are some good ideas here about exploring this masked character, if you're going to do a Book of Boba Fett show, it had to be closer to Mandalorian, and the Mandalorian already existed, so I think they felt forced to do this kind of backstory for him and have this redemption, but I didn't really see it. I think Tamara Morrison is a legend in Star Wars, but I don't think he should be the lead in a TV show. I think the action in the show is extremely lackluster compared to what we saw from Boba Fett in Season 2 of Mandalorian, where he literally takes out a whole Imperial battalion, but in this show, he like chases around a cook droid in the middle of a kitchen, and it's like, what is this? Fennec Shand, she's been in like 3 shows. I still have no idea what type of character she is. I understand she's supposed to be this cool assassin and kind of mirror what Boba Fett was in the 80s, but it's 40 years later. We can evolve our storytelling, and we can make her either a deeper character or just have her keep the helmet on and make her mysterious and only say a couple words. That, I think, would be way better than what we've gotten from her, because we haven't gotten anything from her. She's just like, oh, yeah, I'll go along with you. Oh, yeah, I'll go along with you. Yeah, no problem. So, Book of Boba Fett, really a mess overall. I think, obviously, the highlight of it is the Mandalorian episode, which, in the end of the day, I think the connection between Grogu and Din coming back together in a show outside of their show, I think it not only undercuts the emotional finale of Season 2 of Mandalorian, but it also makes Season 3 this very disjointed season of Mandalorian, and I think it really stemmed from the fact that these two get together in a show not even their own. And, the Ahsoka and Luke meeting in the Book of Boba Fett was so random and out of place, and it took away from the weight of this conversation we've wanted to see for so long. So, I mean, this for me is an easy F-tier Kathleen Kennedy. Cad Bane, cool, but he shows up in, like, the last episode, and they try to make this connection between him and Boba Fett, which should have been explored earlier, because we saw him in Clone Wars, and then, he's just dead by the end. So anyone that was like, ooh, who's this guy? I've never seen Clone Wars. And then he's dead. So really unfortunate, but yeah, Book of Boba Fett just should not have been made. Yeah. All right, we got Star Wars Visions. This is a cool one. So I'm doing Season 1 and 2 together here. So we have some of the anime, and then we have some of the more international studios working on the animated shorts that we get in Visions. So for me, this is close. I'm gonna say Visions is a luminous being. I'm putting Visions in a luminous being because I think even in the low points of Visions, there was care and there was a lot of thought put into it. These studios weren't half-assing this. They were really trying to take big swings, take big risks, and I'd rather see a big swing that misses than a very safe or just something that doesn't even feel like Star Wars, which I think Visions consistently felt like Star Wars, even in its lowest moments. And then, of course, we get to the high moments. I mean, Village Bride, Screecher's Reach, Ninth Jedi. So many great shorts in the Visions catalog at this point. Some of my favorite pieces of Star Wars content, period. And I think these shorts, my favorite ones here, show kind of what I was expecting from Tales of the Jedi. I think, these shorts, in a small amount of time, were able to connect you to the characters. I think, in that episode of Ahsoka where she's with the villagers, I think, you had enough time because Visions proved that you had enough time to really connect her with the villagers because, they do it in Visions. And I just love the way that we see Star Wars from a different perspective, a different worldly perspective, whether it be India, Ireland, Japan, Mexico, like all of this is so cool to see, and it really just warms my heart whenever I watch Star Wars Visions, and it's made me emotional. It's had really amazing fight choreography, so I think just Visions stands out so much, and I just love that it brings a fresh, unique perspective to Star Wars storytelling. So that's why I think it is a luminous being. Okay, next one. Oh boy. Okay, so Mandalorian. This is such a hard one because Mandalorian season one and two, I would easily put in Luminous Beings. I think it's definitely an A tier. But season three has left such a weird taste in my mouth. I would put season three like Bendu or even what? Wait a minute. How did this happen? We are smarter than this. Gosh. Okay, I'm gonna do just to split it in the middle. I'm gonna do This Is Where the Fun Begins because I think season one and two should be in Luminous Beings, and I think season three should be Bendu or even D tier because of just how much of a quality dip it was in storytelling, writing, and pacing. But I mean, season one and two, I'm now nostalgic about. I think when I was watching season one and two, of course, I was enjoying the ride so much. It was amazing to see a live action Star Wars show, but I'm not the biggest fan of Adventure of the Week shows where it's like, oh, we gotta go to this world and there's a big monster, we gotta take out the monster. That's not my favorite way of storytelling, but thinking back, that we've had this diverse offering of Star Wars TV shows. Looking back at season one of Mando, I'm just like very nostalgic. I want to just like go back to that. So, I'll be a hypocrite here and just be like, go back to, the stuff that I said I didn't like at the time. So I'm hoping season four bounces back, but man, seeing Din and Grogu connect outside of their show, Book of Boba Fett, and then Moff Gideon just becoming an idiot by the end of season three is just so unfortunate. So yeah, I'm good putting that in the B tier. Some might say that's heresy. Some might say that's a bit overly optimistic. But I think it's good between A and C. Okay, Clone Wars. I mean, what do you guys think? I mean, come on. We know it's going to Peak Wars. We knew going into this list. We knew I was going to put it there. No surprise. But, I mean, it influences every one of these shows that I have listed here. It has influenced every single one of these shows that I've already listed, and then some shows that I'm about to list. It still has influenced them. It is the granddaddy of Star Wars TV. It proved Star Wars TV could work. It happened between Revenge of the Sith and the acquisition from Disney. There was no Star Wars content that was canon at that time, but Clone Wars was pushing forward and expanding the galaxy, bringing in all these cultures, all these different worldviews, a better Order 66 explanation than maybe what we got in the movies. We have Ahsoka, a legendary Star Wars character at this point, and then we add to characters like Anakin and Obi-Wan throughout the series. Captain Rex becomes a central focus, and he has this amazing arc throughout. And I know some people will be like, how could it be peak if you know that there's really low lows in Clone Wars? Because, yeah, there are some terrible Clone Wars episodes. You don't have to prove that to me. I know that because I sat through them on Friday nights like, please, I hope this arc ends soon. I cannot take another episode of this with commercials. So I understand people be like, oh, that's not really peak. There's a lot of issues with Clone Wars. But to be completely honest, since Clone Wars is more of an anthology show where you don't have to watch every episode, it's not exactly filler because they do add to the canon, but each episode doesn't rely on the next one. So you can easily skip episodes and still get everything you need out of Clone Wars, which I think Rebels you can't do. You have to watch every episode of Rebels. And even if you skip some, I think you'd be missing some character moments that, might seem small at the time, but I think are important at the end of the day. But Clone Wars, you could fully skip episodes, and, none of the main characters are in it. But yeah, I mean, I could go on and on about Clone Wars. We have Maul coming back and becoming one of the best characters in Star Wars, taking him from being nothing to something. And then we have Asajj Ventress, which I think is a very underrated character in Star Wars. I think her whole journey, she might start out as like the sinister, the over-aggressive bad guy that, the world's unfair to me. But, I love how it brings it around. She's this Padawan that was taken away from her master. Her master died in front of her, and then she went to the dark side, and then she got betrayed by the dark side, so now she kind of lives in the middle. And I want to see her story continue in Tales of the Jedi. So I hope they adapt the Dark Disciple book for Tales of the Jedi. Next, okay. Bad Batch. Really interesting. If you asked me beginning of Season 2, like mid-Season 2, it would definitely be in the Bendu category in Tier C. But, Season 2, they did some really good stuff. I'm gonna go This Is Where the Fun Begins for Bad Batch. I think Season 3 has been set up to be a super tight and consistent season of Star Wars television. I think the animation quality, obviously, with Bad Batch is the best we've seen, no doubt. It makes me wish that Rebels story was continued, because I think one of the biggest criticisms of Rebels has always been the animation, even though it's Ralph McQuarrie inspired. Yeah, I mean, it is, but we can all look at each other and say, some of these character models are weird. Everything looks kind of like rubbery. It's weird. There's good animation in Rebels, but there is some bad animation in Rebels. So getting back to Bad Batch, I mean, there are some episodes in Season 2 that I think are rivaling or exceeding some of Clone Wars' best episodes, and that's really saying something. And like I said, I think where they are now in the story, I think Season 3 can be super consistent and really turn the show into something we really fondly look back on. I think Season 1 and 2, while there were great moments in them, there's a lot of misses. I think some of those episodes where it didn't want to decide if it was this serious war political drama or if it wants to be a kid's show, it was in this weird twilight zone. And when it focused up and just accepted what it really was, this, post-war drama between soldiers that were kind of tossed to the side, that's when it's at its best. And when they do those fetch quests, it's just like, 1 or 2, I get it. They have to survive. We have to see how they survive. But, I think going into Season 2, I was like, okay, you guys, we got the point. We know what these characters are. They're all tropes. I get it. But yeah, I think Season 2 really elevated Bad Batch for me. And I'm so excited for Season 3, the final season. So this is where the fun begins for Bad Batch. Resistance, that's a canon tier. I haven't seen it. I haven't had a reason to see it. No one has told me in my life that it's worth watching. It's a show between episode 6 and 7, so it kind of deals with the sequel era, but it's in a very, 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 very kid-like format. It's canon. Kylo Ren shows up in it, Phasma shows up in it, but I don't see myself ever watching it unless someone ties me down to watch it. So I think it was a show that was made by Disney to bring more attention to sequels, and there's a course correction. People are like, no, we don't want that. And I'm sure the studio that they made do it was like, well, can we do what we want to do? And Disney's like, no. We made the sequels. You have to do some stuff on the sequels. So I think that's unfortunately where Resistance lands. If you liked Resistance, go for it. But for me, it's canon. Haven't seen it. Darth Maul cut my eyes. Ahsoka. Okay, so the latest show. Ahsoka, I have to give credit. Through 6 episodes, I was locked in. Loved episode 5. Loved episode 6. I think episode 4, again, fantastic between all the lightsaber duels. Sabine's decision to give up the star map to Baylan. Shin, great. Thrawn, great. But I think, the last 2 episodes, the wheels came off the track a bit. And while I'm excited for the future, I think calling it mid is wrong because, like I said, I did enjoy 6 out of the 8 episodes. Well, I'll say 5 out of the 8 episodes. I think that, maybe the first 2 episodes could have been combined, and I think that that space battle episode was a bit interesting. I think they could have done better with that. So, I wanna say mid a bit, but I loved the Clone Wars flashbacks episode, even though I think it would have been better in animation. I love Baylan. I love Shin. I love where the story could go. I think that's kind of a cop-out answer because it's like, well, you should enjoy the show for what it is now, not for what it could become. I'm going to say this is where the fun begins. I think, through the first 6 episodes, I was like locked in. I was so excited for Ahsoka. Unfortunately now, you have the full picture and it's like, oh, okay, now I kind of feel like I need to criticize the earlier episodes because I was just like, no, it's going to get better, Dave. He always wraps things up well. In this case, I think, it was very rushed. It was his first time in live action, so, fair enough for not exactly nailing every piece of it because he had a very tough job to do, introducing new crowds to the Rebel storyline and also satisfying Rebels fans. So I'm going to say this is where the fun begins. I think that's a fair one in the B tier. And we'll see where Ahsoka goes. I think, it's set up a lot. We have Thrawn back in the galaxy. We have, our heroes stranded on Peridia. what's going to happen next? I don't know. So I'm excited for Ahsoka moving forward. Andor, oh, my king. Peak Wars. It's no contest there. Andor is the most consistent, well-made season of Star Wars we've ever had. Maybe we ever will have. The only other thing that could beat it is Andor Season 2, and that's a testament to just how good it is. I mean, it's got all the acclaim in the world. It has a Peabody. It has Golden Globe and Emmy nominations for Best Drama. It is what I've always wanted from a Star Wars TV show. I've always wanted a Star Wars TV show that is written and is taken seriously as an HBO Max show, the pinnacle of scripted TV, HBO. I was like, Star Wars can do that. I know it can. And Andor was like the first thing that opened my eyes. I was like, oh my God, I wasn't crazy. They can do it. And they did do it. And I can't say enough about Andor. The score is incredible. Nicholas Bertelli, sorry, I just shortened his name because we're on a first-name basis. He did the score for Succession, and then he did this for Andor, and he's just incredible. I love the themes that they've established. Mon Mothma has become one of my favorite characters. She is my queen. I love her so much. Such a tragic story. Andor, a character that I think was my favorite part of Rogue One, but now has so much more depth, and I love his dynamic between him and his mother, Marva. Ferrix has become an iconic world in Star Wars between the speech, the uprising. We have there's just so many great moments, and even the great moments that are big and bombastic are also highlighted as well by the smaller, more intimate moments between Stellan Skarsgård and his character of Luthen. And we have characters like Cyril, who's weird, but it works in Star Wars. He would exist in the Star Wars galaxy. And then Deidre, again, a character that we've never really seen before. A villain in the Imperial Investigation Bureau that we love in the beginning, but then slowly begin to hate. But we totally understand where she's coming from. She's great. She's fantastic. So I'm excited to see where all of these characters go. I think Season 2 is going to establish Andor as just... Can you go above Peak Wars? I don't know. There might be a tier list out there where there's something above Peak Wars. But right now, yeah, Andor and Clone Wars that's the pinnacle right there. Okay, yeah, you know what? This tier list is looking good. So yeah, I like this. It's very evenly spread out. I think this is a fair tier list. So that's with all the canon shows, animation, live action. We have a lot coming down the pipeline. Excited to see. Acolyte, Skeleton Crew. And we'll update this list, maybe a year and a half, 2 years. Of course, you have to take into account that all of these shows are still ongoing, or a lot of these shows. Andor, Ahsoka, Bad Batch, Mandalorian, Tales of the Jedi. All these shows can continue, so, wheels might start falling off later, or we might start getting on the bullet train with some of these shows. So, excited to see where they go. Want to wrap up this list with the original Clone Wars, the Genndy Clone Wars on 2D animation on Cartoon Network. Okay, so rose tinted glasses. I rewatched it, I think a year ago. It's messy. It's over the top. It's a lot. It's like Star Wars on crack. It's crazy. So, for me, it's a bit more power fantasy than what I like in Star Wars. I'm more of a, tempered power fantasy. So for me, this is tough. I'm going to put it in Bendu, mid-tier. I think that's fair. I think a lot of people might be really mad at that. Dude, Clone Wars was my childhood. Dude, Grievous was so sick and all that stuff. But I think if you rewatch it now, you'll kind of be like, okay, yeah, that's a bit much. That doesn't really make sense. It's really it's kind of rushed in some moments. But I do think they do a really cool job of, having Anakin's knighting ceremony, which is something we somehow don't see in Clone Wars at all, which would have been really cool to see. We see he gets a scar. We have, really cool, Navy SEAL-esque clone missions, which I would just rewatch constantly. I thought that was so cool. Asajj Ventress is a bit more, one note than in Clone Wars, but you get where she's coming from. The lightsaber battles are really cool. Animation's great. We have these huge scale battles on Coruscant, above Coruscant. And then we have Grievous, which, I mean, a lot of people, and myself included, think is like the ultimate version of General Grievous. I think he is so horrifying in this Clone Wars version. He's scary, he's menacing, the way they use his sound effects, the way he claws on the walls and no one knows where he is, and he uses his body as like a suit of armor to like deflect bolts and all this stuff. I mean, Grievous in this is like peak Grievous. And it makes you wish that Clone Wars, well, the later Clone Wars, the 3D Clone Wars, kind of leaned into that Grievous a bit more. But not that I don't think the one in Clone Wars is aligned with the one in Revenge of the Sith, but I do think it is a step down from Revenge of the Sith and this Clone Wars. So a lot to like about the Genndy Clone Wars. A lot of cool things that were introduced that kind of made it into the regular Clone Wars. Yeah, looking at it, it does look mean to put it in Bendu. But it's not canon, so that always, from my high horse, it doesn't deserve to be any higher. It's not canon. But I think if you watch it again as an adult, I don't think it has the same effect as it did as a kid, but some of it definitely still holds up. So I've taken way too much time on that show, but I had to make sure that you understood why I put it in Bendu in the mid-tier. But yeah, okay, that's the end. That was a lot of fun. I haven't ever done a tier. I've watched so much tier list content from Moist Critical and so many YouTubers, and I never really thought I would. But this was a lot of fun. I kind of get the appeal, and I see myself doing more of this in the future. But I don't think I'll do movies because you guys know my movie rankings. But this was a lot of fun, and I'd be excited to continue updating this yearly. So if you have been listening to me do a tier list, respect. Hopefully you had a nice visual of what I was doing. If you're watching it, then that's awesome as well. Hopefully you enjoyed seeing my face doing this the entire time. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. I hope this list gets respect. I think it makes a lot of sense. But again, thank you guys for listening, watching. As always, if you want to see more of this content, follow on Instagram at @star_wars_mark of balance. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy, and may the force be with you. Peace.